rushing around, a little late getting started, but that's okay because you guys are awesome and you're nice enough to give me a little bit of grace, which I do appreciate. So, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention or not, but everything that I've been talking about for a long time looks very close to playing out here when it comes to the macro. We've got a lot of things escalating over there in the Middle East. We've got oil up 6% today. We have gold up a little bit. Not quite enough for Japan to have to aggressively raise interest rates, but we're up 6% on the day in crude priced in yen. That is the catalyst. That is what's going to move things here. We had permission DEX on the XRPL go live this morning, which is the last piece for them to be able to facilitate institutional payment flows on the mainnet of the XRPL. We're here. Everything's in place. Everything's capable to be used. It is literally driving liquidity into the asset through a supply shock to be able to start using it at scale, which is exactly what Monica Long said at the community day that they had for XRP community just last week. She said, 2026 would be the year for institutional adoption of the XRPL at scale. And it looks like maybe just a day too soon. I don't know. If things continue to escalate at the rate that they currently are, you are going to see everything play out. The dominoes are going to fall. Everything's going to happen. And I do think that XRP is going to come out smelling like a rose. We're going to see significantly higher prices for XRP in order to be able to facilitate the payment flows that they need to be able to pull themselves out of this situation with a liquidity crisis globally as the reverse carry trade unwinds. So, and this is probably a good time for my disclaimer. Nothing here is financial advice. It's only for entertainment and educational purposes. If you need financial advice, you can reach out to one of our financial advisors at Digital Ascension Group, and they would gladly be able to help you, navigate where to allocate your capital, provide institutional custody for your XRP. And I think if things play out as we've talked about, the inflows that we're going to be seeing for people that want to participate over there at Digital Wealth Partners is going to be wild. We've had some pretty significant inflows over the last year. Serve about 3,000 clients today there at Digital Wealth Partners, providing them access to institutional custody at Anchorage, same place that BlackRock holds all their assets. So you get the same security as BlackRock, insured up to $100 million. And with the other products that we're going to be launching in the very near future, you're going to be able to generate returns. We already have generated returns on XRP over the last almost 12 months. It'll be April, will be 1 year that the fund has been operating. About 5% is what the original fund has paid out in cash over the duration. So nothing crazy, but holding XRP in institutional custody, covering all their fees, and making a little extra pocket change never hurt anybody, right? The funds do not have a guaranteed performance. They are volatile. Sometimes they underperform. That's why we did quarterly payouts, because we wanted to stretch that, out. There have been months where it's been down significantly. There's been months like at the end of 2025 where they were up 18% in 1 month. Actually, it was the end of 2024, excuse me. They were up 18% in 1 month on the fund. So, it was before we made an allocation, obviously, but we saw an aggressive rise in XRP, and that's how they were able to capture that and be able to generate that type of return. If we see another meteoric rise in XRP because of a supply shock, I would expect that they'd be able to capitalize on that as well. And those that are participating in the fund will benefit from that price action. The yield product, still working on getting that across the line. I think that will come soon after. If we do see things move here, I think that may be what our partners are waiting on. We'll see. I don't have a way to verify that one way or the other, but I'm hopeful that things move, and that is the case, and we see the yield product live for our clients in the very near future. Again, inside institutional custody, covering all costs that we have, plus a little extra jingle in your pocket. It'll be a monthly distribution that you would receive on that yield product. So more to come. on that as things progress here. But back to the macro, you have things escalating between Israel and Iran and the U.S. all in the region. The U.S. has sent another large aircraft carrier over there into that region. And you've already seen oil start to move. There's the threat of the close of Strait of Hormuz. That will cut off oil supply to Japan. That will raise energy costs in Japan. They will have to react to that. The Bank of Japan will have to raise interest rates to offset that inflation in their economy. And off we go. Everything will unwind at scale. And they will need a liquidity buffer there for the FX market. They will need to be able to move to back-end settlement real time on the back end of the stock market. You've already had president of NASDAQ. You've had the SEC chair, Paul. You've had the New York Stock Exchange. Everybody has already talked about distributed ledger used to be able to settle the back end of the stock market. And we know that Project Ion was finalized in 2022, August of that year, using R3 and the DTCC. That was a collaboration between those two to be able to create a real-time settlement mechanism for the clearinghouses and the brokers. Recently, R3 has come out and said that they're using Solana for security and consensus. So I know that may cause people some concern. You say, well, you said R3 is going to use XRP. They are. Not for security, not for consensus, for settlement. They need something for settlement. There was a recent interview, shout out to Ginfinity. If you guys don't follow him, go check him out. He used to be King Solomon. He's kind of rebranded himself. For whatever reason, he doesn't like me. Not sure what I did to him. We went back and forth on Twitter a couple times years ago. I've seen him a few times in person. He's always been cool. So I don't know if he still has beef with me or not. Again, I like everybody. I don't know why other people don't like me. But he had a really good interview. Just want to give him a shout out on here. King Solomon or Ginfinity, whatever he goes by now, with the CEO of R3. And they talked about Solana and how it's going to secure the network. Again, security and consensus, not settlement. Very different things. You can use multiple protocols to be able to accomplish something, right? It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. The chains of the future are going to be interoperable. There's going to be a multi-chain world that we move into. We need the Clarity Act for those to be used at scale. XRP already has Clarity here in the US from the lawsuit with the SEC and Ripple. July 13th of 2023, the judge ruled that XRP in and of itself is not a security here in the US, and we've had it listed on Bitnomial. We know that Caroline spoke with Ripple frequently and has multiple pictures with Brad Garlinghouse and the team there where she talked to them, and XRP being listed with a USD pair on Bitnomial alongside Bitcoin and ETH pretty much designates it under the CFTC's purview as a commodity here in the US. Now, does it become a supernatural currency? Are markets priced in drops? Is it a tier 1 asset? I think all those things will happen, but we're going to need to see a much higher price for XRP. And once it starts being backed effectively by the global economy, all large-scale transactions and markets utilizing it to settle, it becomes riskless, right? And the reason for that is kind of the reason for the US dollar being riskless. It's backed by the US government and our military and our good faith that we're not going to default on our debt, which the US has done twice in its history, by the way. This would be backed by global commerce, a protocol that settles everything at scale on the back end of markets. So the only way that it's ever going to stop being a riskless asset is if the global economy collapses and money stops moving, which won't happen when they move to real-time settlement, which effectively makes this like the safest place to hold your money if you believe that that's what it's going to end up being. It's my personal belief. Again, not here to convince you one way or the other. Do your own research, watch a bunch of other people. I'm just some guy on the internet that talks about this stuff, things that I believe are true, how I allocate my capital. If you go talk to Wood Digital Wealth Partners, they're probably going to tell you to diversify into multiple assets. They would tell me that I'm wrong for how I manage my portfolio. So, just full transparency. And we have all these things happening, right? And really, like, it's weird to me that the can got kicked and kicked and kicked, and now we have this coming live on the XRPL this morning. permission DEX. So we had digital identity, we had credentials, we had permission domains, and now we have permission DEXs. What that does is it allows a zero knowledge proof way for the banks and institutions to be able to transact on the mainnet and have private permissioned ecosystems effectively, where you have to have credentials in order to be able to view those transactions. I don't know how much better it could get for banks and institutions. And you can call XRP the banker's coin. I'm cool with that. I do think that that's literally what it is. It will be what facilitates global commerce between all of these counterparties, institutions, enterprises, back-end settlement of markets. But we have to have price. You have to have price first. And price is going to come from supply and demand dynamics, just like anything else would. And once it's a high enough price, they can start leveraging the network and the asset itself to settle those transactions through all these markets that it's integrated with on the back end. And that'll hold price stability. You won't have this volatility that we've seen in the asset where it spikes way up and then it comes back down 90%. I don't think that that's going to end up being, what happens. Other people might disagree with me on that, and that's okay. That's their prerogative. I have my thesis and they have theirs, and time will prove who's right. So that's the fun stuff that's going on out there. I appreciate you guys being over here on TikTok, Facebook, X, and YouTube, running it down with me a little early today on the Wednesday. We've got XRP Community Night tonight here in ETH Denver. So if you're in the area and you want a ticket, I think those are still available. It is free to attend. Ripple is hosting that, and we will be there. So if you're in the area and you're interested, we would love to see you over there at XRP Community Night. I'll plug my laptop in before it goes dead here. So excited for that one, and that is why we were doing the live a little bit earlier than we normally do. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into the questions. You guys always have awesome questions that we run down over here from the super chats on Twitter. I think I had one that I missed earlier this week that I want to address. If my Discord will load here. I have to go over here. There we go. Living Legacy. All right, a couple of them that I missed. Actually, just one of them I missed earlier in the week. Not My Real Name 10 says, Carbon One member, Beyond Broke. BB said he's 25% allocated in, that's I guess Blockchain Backer. Blockchain Backer says he's 25% allocated and sees possible chart move to $1.12 and maybe $1.48 now. Tax loss harvest 200K, still hold 50K, average price 141. If you were me, add here, wait for $1.20, $1.12 or dollar cost average. What LVLS would I act on? Not financial advice, just your approach. That's a fair question. And again, to your point, I can't give you financial advice. We have seen a lot of people take advantage of the tax loss harvesting. So if you are down on your positions and you wanted to sell and buy back, there is no wash rule in crypto. You can take advantage of that to be able to lock in capital losses and roll those forward if you're going to think you're going to have some capital gains. That's a great way to take advantage of the rules as they sit today. I'm not a fan of trying to catch a falling knife. I've bought XRP at 17 cents. I bought XRP at $3.20. It's not going to matter to me when XRP is $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, right? And I get people want more, right? But that percentage move between 140 and call it 120, I mean, how much more XRP are you getting? Not a ton, right? Maybe 10% more, a little more than 10% more. I don't know what the volatility is going to look like when all this plays out. I would rather be in. I would rather be holding it over there in institutional custody, safe, secure, not dealing with volatility on exchanges or other brokerages or whatever things might happen out there. All those things tend to go down during volatility in the market. Coinbase is notorious for doing that. So we do have limit orders with Digital Wealth Partners that we can execute if you do have cash over there. We did buy people, on 1010. There were people that had limit orders down there at $1.20, $1.10. Those executed. They got that XRP. So whatever you're using, you might be using a brokerage, you might be using another exchange. If you can use a limit order at those prices and you do have fresh cash or fiat sitting there, you might be able to catch that falling knife. Again, not my game. The risk is not worth the reward to me. I personally just dollar cost average into the market. Bought a little bit today, so we'll see where the market goes, what the volatility looks like, but that is also the opportunity. The volatility, down and up, are what people want here in this asset class, and why people become wealthy very quickly when they're invested in the right token that does see appreciation in a short period of time. I do think that people will take profits on the way up. Again, I've said this before, you never go broke taking profits, okay? However, the cost of benefit over the long term, right? If you don't need that money immediately, if you have access to borrow against it, if you have ways to generate income off of it, that's been our whole thesis at Digital Wealth Partners and Digital Ascension Group, is create these solutions before they were needed so that people have access to them once the price reaches significantly higher levels, and they don't have to liquidate, deal with the tax implications on the capital gains, whether those are long-term or short-term. This individual that mentioned, he said he bought higher in the recent past. You hadn't been holding it for a year, so you're going to be subject to short-term capital gains on that. Now, I would love it if Trump would come out and say, no capital gains on crypto. I don't know that that's going to be a viable deal from an investment perspective. They may put stipulations around that and state that if you're using it for business transactions, banks and institutions settling through it, and when you buy into it and sell out of it, there's going to be small discrepancies, a thousandth of a penny here, a thousandth of a penny there, but at scale, that's a lot that they've got to keep up with, right? So it makes sense to me that they would just do away with it, because that's going to cause them a lot less strife and headache to be able to manage their taxes on the back end of it. But again, I don't know that that's going to be applicable for people that have bought it for an investment thesis versus a utility-driven application. So I'm hopeful, just like everybody else is, but I don't know. So we got to live in the world that we live in today and operate as the rules are written. The rules of the road today are, these are taxable, they're capital assets, they're taxed with long-term and short-term capital gains. And so, again, if you wanted to do a little tax loss harvesting and you knew you had enough, capital losses to offset the capital gains whenever you take some profit, you can take that profit without having to worry about it. If you're going to take less than, I think it's like 20,000 in capital gains or profit, you should be fine. You won't owe any taxes on that. When you get above that, and it's going to factor in your income too, what tax bracket you're going to have, even on the long-term capital gain side, whether it's 15 or 20% here in the U.S. Other jurisdictions, if you're in Dubai, you're in Singapore, you're in Puerto Rico, take profits, trade, do what you're going to do. It's 4% flat tax. That's a corporate level. Depends on the jurisdiction. That's Puerto Rico. I think they have a 6% business tax or flat tax there in Dubai at this point. Nothing on retail, long-term, short-term capital gains. But again, you probably want to structure this stuff inside of some type of entity just for creditor protection and the ability to pass it on to your loved ones on the other side of price appreciation. That's a lot of what we talk about here. Setting up an LLC, setting up a trust, structuring things the right way to be able to mitigate creditor risk, and taxes. You get the full breadth of the tax code inside of an LLC. You get much more. And it needs to be a reasonable corporation. Like, you have to do the corporate veil. There's got to be meeting minutes and all the stuff that we provide everybody if they work with us. If you work with somebody else and you do it a little bit cheaper, just make sure you're doing those things to maintain your corporate veil. We do it for $2,000 end to end. If you use the code 50OFF50 OFFDAGLLC, that's 50 OFFDAGLLC, get you everything end to end for $2,000 over there. And you can add on, a revocable living trust, which is a pass-through entity. There's no additional EIN with that. You will need to do a bridge or an assignment. We sell all that together for like $800 if you use the code Webinar Trust, all capitalized. So maybe you already have the LLC, but you want the revocable trust. You can set that up for $800. That is the cheapest you're going to find it out there for digital assets. I can guarantee you that. There's nobody else that does it that cheap. And again, we want to make sure that people have access to this stuff, that you're educated, you understand what questions to ask, you understand why you're doing it, or, like some people just tell you to do things and they don't give you the reasons like why it actually matters. Post price appreciation, you can still do this stuff. You can actually transfer your stuff in at the basis to the LLC and not deal with the tax implications. That's something that we've recently gone over with our CPAs. Prior to maybe just about a month ago, the way that I understood it from the CPAs that we had been working with and the tax letters that we had up to that point, you had to contribute it at the price that it was. Now, if you're doing a single member LLC that's a disregarded entity, it's not a tax implication either way, but you do want to make sure that you understand the basis at which you bought the assets. So you could contribute it at the price that it is today. You just wanted to note the basis that you bought it at. That way the assets still have that basis inside the LLC. And then, again, you don't have a step up in cost or change in time frame. And you would be able to, again, mitigate taxes to the best of your ability once you have that inside the LLC. We set things up in Wyoming for lots of reasons. Many people here have watched this spiel a whole bunch of times, but we might have new viewers either now or later. So the reasons we choose Wyoming, one, strong creditor protection there. You get the same pretty much as Nevada, where you have charging order protection. And then in addition to that, the full tax code, you get the creditor protection. You have no state taxes there in Wyoming, so that can be beneficial. You won't have a nexus to the state that you operate in as long as you don't do business out of your state. And these are virtual assets, they're global, so shouldn't have to do that. And then separate of that, the legislation there in Wyoming is the most progressive when it comes to digital assets. So that's why we choose Wyoming. You could use an existing LLC to manage these assets if you had a holding company in another, another country or another state. You're just not going to be afforded some of the same benefits. Anonymity is another big one there in Wyoming. You get attorney-client privilege, so your name, your address, none of that is listed on any public documents. So it'd be difficult for people to discern who actually, owns this entity. A lot of people value their privacy, especially as you become wealthier, you become a target. And that, I'm not saying that to scare people or anything. That's just a reality of the world we live in. Especially here in the U.S., people sue you for anything. Any way they think you can, get a money grab, they will do it. And so as long as you're protecting yourself, I would highly encourage people to at least look at it. And again, it's probably not reasonable unless you have at least $50,000 to $80,000 in total portfolio value at this time. Post price appreciation, that's going to change. That's with the anticipation that we're going to see a pretty significant rise in the assets that many people that watch this might hold. A lot of people are going to tell you probably don't need that until it's like at least a couple $100,000, which is also very true. If you're not anticipating significant price rise and stuff, you might wait till then. We see most people look at it somewhere to $50,000 to $80,000 in total portfolio value. And the other reason for that is here in the United States, you get $30 million that you can gift out of your taxable estate over your lifetime. That's your lifetime gift tax threshold. That may continue to increase while Trump is in office. However, if we do see a change in regime, Biden was going to lower that to like $7 million. Had he won the election. So just different strokes for different folks. Different parties have different, thoughts around this stuff. And 30 million seems like a lot, but if you had, 200,000 XRP and it goes to $1,000, you got $200 million. 30M ain't going to cut it. You're going to have to figure out a way to structure that, get it into an intentionally defective grantor trust or use philanthropic stuff. To be able to, structure it in a way where you're going to have long-term benefit of those assets without having to sell them or deal with a 40% estate tax when those assets move to your heirs. If you need somebody, to walk you through all that stuff, if you're drinking from a fire hose, this seems wild, you can always reach out to digitalfamilyoffice.io, and our team there can help you navigate this stuff on the estate planning side. So we'll go ahead and jump into some more questions here. We got Sam. He says, sup, Mr. Legend. What's up, my dude? not on my 3 a.m. night shift tonight. Do you think, even if the reverse carry trade can avoid using XRP as a cut the nose to spite the face, do you think even if the reverse carry trade unwinds, they can avoid using XRP as a cut the nose to spite the face? No. I don't. There's not another way for them to be able to de-risk and settle this on the back end of the stock market with the losses that they're going to have. Banks already have huge unrealized losses on their balance sheet. They need an asset to be able to offset those, and they need a way to be able to settle to de-risk from Bitcoin if it were plummeting. Bitcoin trades close to real time. The back end settlement of the stock market is still T+1 with the option. May 28th of 2024. They moved to T+1 with the option to settle real time via a digital asset, which, again, my personal opinion, not fact, is XRP. We'll see. I'm pretty confident that I'm right, but time will tell. I really don't see another way for them to shore up the FX market or do what's required in order to be able to mitigate this risk and shore things up without XRP. It really is the only option, and I think they're backed into a corner. And I think many people, incumbents, institutions that make money off the current system have been in opposition to this for a long time. But now that they see this coming, I think many of them have come around on it. And those that don't move will end up going out of business. They won't be able to compete. So all that being said, no, I don't really see any other viable option. We got KJ. They say, does the XRPL need zero knowledge proofs in order for the back end settlement of the stock market to occur in the event of the reverse carry trade? No. And the reason for that is, so Corda provides private permissioned ecosystems that have been built by these institutions. It's been around for 5-6 years that all this stuff has actually already been built and ready to go. And because it operates in private permissioned ecosystems and just settles over the mainnet, again, with digital identity, credentials, permission domain, and permission dexes, you would have to have credentials in order to be able to view those transactions. That is the zero knowledge proof that David Schwartz has been talking about. They've implemented this already. So the answer is yes. I mean, they have it, and it will be used. And again, R3 already has private permissioned ecosystems that settle through XRP over the mainnet. So yes, and it's already viable and available for the reverse carry trade. And just in time, I guess. Just wild that went live this morning, and now we have everything that's playing out over there in the Middle East. Sona says, if Democrats do an unrealized gains tax in 2029, could be horrible for XRP holders. Is there anything we can do to prepare to protect us? I mean, there's lots of things that you can do. We work with people to get their assets offshore. We have Cook Islands Trust that we set up. That jurisdiction's never been penetrated by the U.S. government. I don't think that that's going to happen. I'm not overly worried that Democrats are going to come back into power. I have a really unique perspective on governmental shifts that are going to happen over the next 3-4 years. I think we're probably going to move toward a technocracy versus the democracy that we currently have today with two different parties. Again, a lot of people would be in opposition to that. It may take much longer than I think. I'm always a bit early, which you guys probably know on stuff. But yeah, they've tried to do this in other jurisdictions. In Australia, they were going to do it to the self-managed super funds, and so many people are in opposition to it. Like, it just puts people in a bad situation. I know that, and on the other side of this, I think that there's going to be enough output in GDP and real-time taxation because of the automations that are created with the currency that they won't need to force people to sell assets to pay taxes. I don't see a paradigm or a world where that exists with this progressive tech put in place. So I don't foresee that, but if you did want to, set something up to be able to protect yourself in that situation, we could set you up a trigger trust. So what that is it's an irrevocable asset protection trust or another type of irrevocable trust to hold your assets here domestically in the U.S. There's kind of a domino effect of trustees and people that step down, and the assets move offshore into a Cook Islands trust. or offshore into another vehicle, into another jurisdiction that's difficult for the U.S. to penetrate if you foresaw something like that coming. It's a little expensive to set that up, but if you do have large amounts of money that you've made off of XRP, you can probably afford it. You can look at it as an insurance policy. Many large family offices diversify across multiple jurisdictions to be able to mitigate some of those risk or geopolitical risk that they see on the horizon, just like you're talking about. Nothing wrong with that, right? And we have the partners and solutions to be able to effectuate those things if that's something that you're interested in. Randy, my man, he said, you've said many times that Bobway has a patent that could speed up the XRP TPS. Why would they not already have that up and going? Why not show off the world how fast it can run? Up to this point, they really haven't needed it, right? 1500 TPS is enough to trial a lot of the things that they've been doing, and they've had private permissioned ecosystems where I'm sure they've used that patent to be able to show that it does provide significantly higher TPS that can scale. And I think that they've already shown the parties that need to be aware of that technology. As far as it being adopted on the mainnet and used in real-world application between multiple counterparties and in a commercialized setting, I think that they will do that when that needs to be done. They don't want to draw attention to this asset, and they want to hold it down as long as they can so that the institutions can get their piece of the pie and participate, and so that they don't draw attention to it. Many people have fudded XRP. They call it, not decentralized, a banker's coin, Ripple's piggy bank, whatever you want to call it. There is a method to the madness that has been put forth here, and when it's needed, I guarantee you it will show up. Firenut 911 says, why would BlackRock risk ETF price appreciation get in low? Good question. So why would BlackRock wait to launch their ETF? Again, I think a lot of people have just a visceral response to stuff, and they think, well, that makes sense for me. That's why an institution would do it. There's many, for lack of a better term, and to use the pun, ripple effects that happen from things. Again, if you didn't want to draw in like a ton of attention to something, you would slowly, surely do things, and then at the right moment drive a ton of attention to it to be able to get what you wanted as a result. And that's why I think BlackRock has held back their ETF. They also don't care where retail buys it. It doesn't matter to them. As long as it's going to aggregate liquidity and have the outcome that they want, they don't need to be the ones buying it up off the market. We already have enough ETFs that have already started to do that and cause the supply shortage that we need to be in place to be able to, drive significant demand and FOMO at the right time to push it to the price it needs to be. The other piece is, if you did start to see large institutional flows and it pushed the price up to 10, 15, 20 bucks, it's not quite to the level of liquidity that's required to start using it. And then you have other outside factors that could cause XRP to not ever make it to those levels where they could start using it and it would be a stable high price. So you need to orchestrate that in order to achieve that outcome. And again, if you draw attention to it too early, or you have these additional compounding factors kind of rolled out slowly versus all at once, you're not going to achieve the price that it needs to be for them to actually start using it, which is really the outcome that they're looking for. So again, it's timing, it's strategic. I believe it's coordinated. You could probably argue against that. I've just seen too many coincidences that caused me to believe that they're not coincidences. All right. Scrolling on down. This one, I'm going to butcher your name, so I'm just going to go to the question. They say, David Schwartz said XRP unlikely to hit $50 or $100. What's your take on that? That's not what he said. If you would actually read the tweet, again, people just have a visceral response to stuff, and they kind of take things at a surface level. They don't really read into things. I'm still not good at this, by the way, what I'm about to say, but I've gotten better at it with age and being married. My wife God love her. I've asked her to be more direct about stuff because I'm like a third grader. Like, you got to tell me as it is. Otherwise, I'm probably not going to understand exactly what you mean. She tries to say things and gets me to read between the lines, right? Same thing David's doing there. David has NDAs. Other people have things in place that don't allow them to explicitly come out and say things. And if they do say things, sometimes it's kind of like a CYA or a plausible deniability type thing. You're not going to come right out and say these things. I can. I'm not part of Ripple. I am adjacent, right? We obviously would benefit from XRP's price going up. So again, that's probably a good point. Like, take everything I say with a grain of salt. We've built our business around this. We obviously will benefit significantly when it goes up to significantly higher prices. People have accused me of using this as a marketing tactic to aggregate stuff for our business and a bunch of other things. I truly believe everything that I'm saying. I don't come on here and blow smoke and if I ever have a change in opinion about stuff, I will come on here and say it. Everybody's entitled to be able to change their opinion if they need to. If you're presented with new data, that is a sign of an intelligent person to me. But back to the question at hand, like I said, my wife will say things kind of in passing, and sometimes just honestly, I'm not listening well enough. Like, I'm doing better on being, a better communicator. But I think that's what he's doing there. They'll say things in a certain way that might give people a certain visceral response, but if you read into what they say a little bit more and think critically through it, I think you would come to the conclusion that that's probably not actually what he said. And there's been multiple other times where he stated that XRP needs to be at a $10,000 price in order for it to fulfill its actual use case. So if you want to, I can guarantee you there's been more times he said that than the other. Jeff Dunn, my man, he says, Jake, are you going to Consensus Miami in May? I am. Is Max? I believe so. If so, can I buy a ticket or can I buy you a drink? Jeff, Malibu, California. We will be at Consensus. We're speaking there at Consensus in May before XRP Vegas and Bitcoin Vegas later that month. It's a little bit later that month. We're probably going to be running some specials in May. But I would love to see you there in Miami, Jeff. I'm sure we'll be around. We'll probably host some type of event in correlation with that. And we would love to see you there. Mastermind people are always invited to those events. We do more in real life events for the mastermind than pretty much any other community in crypto that I'm aware of. Maybe the only other one would be like Crypto Mondays. I just saw Lou the other day up there in New York. We went to dinner together. Shout out to Lou. Who's been the head of Crypto Mondays the whole time, does a fantastic job. If you have a chapter in your city, I would encourage you to go to Crypto Mondays. I think you're going to get a little bit different perspective, than probably what you get on here, but that's a good thing, right? Like, again, you want to take all of these differing opinions in order to craft your own thesis and come to your own conclusions. But yeah, would love to see you there at Consensus in Miami. We've got... Are we there yet? 86 says, can't wait for you to be right and prove all the haters wrong. Let's see how many fakes come out and say that they were on your side the whole time. Always stayed true to your direction and took so many people along the way with you. God bless. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I have a very high conviction in the thesis that I've put out. Again, I feel like Michael Burry. I've been wrong for a while, right? And there's been a culmination of events that needed to take place to come to this point in time where all of this could play out in the domino theory and orchestrate the supply shock and drive the price and use utility in order to back it and hold it at a high level. And we're almost 2 years. And that was about the time when Michael Burry was finally right. He started betting against the housing market in 2006. And a lot of his investors, I talked about this the other day, I don't remember if it was on the mastermind or on here, but a lot of people wanted to pull their money out of the fund. They thought he was crazy, all these things. And then he ended up making like $40 billion off of the bets that he made against the housing market. Which again, I don't want there to be collateral damage. I'm praying for the people over there in the Middle East, in Iran and Israel. I hope that we don't escalate this to World War III. I don't think it needs to be. I think we just need, the Strait of Hormuz shut down in anticipation for this stuff to happen. And that's all we need for everything to roll out. And actually, I think it'll prevent World War III. I think this was negotiated a long time ago, in my personal opinion. And again, you can do your own research, come to your own conclusions. I've just seen, again, too many coincidences that lead me to believe that that's the case. And again, appreciate you on the support, and continue to watch and advocate for me. It really does mean a lot. And it's been cool to see who's really on our side through all of this over the past 6 months. It's been eye-opening. There's been a lot of people that I thought we were cool with and were friends and advocates for us that didn't end up being the case. And again, I've said this before, I would much rather know that now than later on. God has divine timing and blessing in disguise. Silver linings. I try to find the best in everything. So, all right. Always kicks me up in the chat. We'll get on further down. We are going to stay on for, I was 2 minutes late. We're going to run it down for about an hour. We'll call it an hour and 10. And then I got to get over to XRP Community Night here in Denver. We got Lee. He says, hey, Jake from England. Once we see a $50 XRP, I'll fly over to Texas to shake your hand. Love your live shows. Hi to the T-Lady too. Thank you, my man. I appreciate that. I look forward to seeing you in the not too distant future, if everything does play out here with the catalysts, like I've been talking about. We've got offices in Texas. We're also looking at some office space in New York. We're looking at a few other cities, looking to expand internationally this year. We were here in Denver. We had, half of our company here. The majority of those were advisors for Digital Wealth Partners. And we had a really good, offsite the last couple days. Want to cultivate, cool culture, client-driven mission throughout the company, and the excitement in the room was palpable. It was really cool. You start things with intentions, and to see them come to fruition, I'm not at a loss for words a lot of times, but here lately I've felt so blessed and humbled to just see things moving in the direction that you always want them to. All I can say is God's good, right? So thank you for the kind words, and I look forward to seeing you in Texas in the near future. KK Pond, my man. He says, sup, Jake? Blessings to you and the fam, bro. Lots of good TA, seeing strong support at $1.11 and 87 cents for XRP for a double bottom. What are your thoughts? Again, I know a lot of people want to see it go lower. Fear in the market is the worst that it's ever been on the Fear and Greed Index. RSI is way oversold. There's going to be a lot of people out in the market right now making videos and content that are going to tell you price is going lower. I'm hesitant to believe that. Now, I would love to be wrong, and I would also hate to be wrong, right? Like, that's going to afford people a lot of opportunity if we do see that, but I think a lot of people that have taken advantage of the opportunity that we have right now, it's half of what it was last year at $3, less than half. If you liked it at $3, you probably love it at $1.40. And I know everybody's always trying to get a little bit more and make their money stretch further. I get all those things. Dollar cost averaging, time in the market beats timing the market. And people that are trying to call bottoms or tops, I don't play that game. If you want to play that game, you can definitely go watch Blockchain Backer. He's been spot on with a lot of his stuff over the last really 5 years that I've been watching him. He's called almost all of it. And he's not always certain on stuff, and I like that about him. He'll tell you, hey, look, like, here's the things I'm saying. These are the couple ways it could play out. He's also looking at deploying capital here. He's like, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe we'll see it go lower. I'll probably put another 50% in the market right here, and then if it does drop lower, another 25% type thing. Cool, right? For me, I don't want to miss it. I would rather be a little bit early and have a little bit less and be in when it takes off than try to catch a falling knife and have half my capital out waiting for those prices and then miss the upside on what could have been if I had just not been greedy. Every time I have been greedy in my life, it has bit me in the ass. I can, and in crypto specifically. I'll give you an example. So, I took 13 positions in 2020 and 2021. I did day trade with a small bag. There was a coin called Loopring that I watched, and every so often it would have a big move. I saw the chart and I got in. I thought, okay, like 3 to 10 days, I think there'll be a big move, and there was. And I had a price target that was a little bit more than double my money, and I was like, okay, when it gets to that, I'll sell. It never got there. It was like 5% short of that. And then it fell and then kind of rebounded a little bit. And I was like, oh, it'll come back up. Like it's going to keep going. It fell all the way back down. So just stuff like that, right? Like, I'm not saying be happy with what you got. You should never be, you should be happy, but unsatisfied, right? Comfortable. Don't get comfortable. Always be striving for more, but at the same time, be reasonable. And for me, that I've learned my lesson enough that dollar cost averaging is the better way to go, because you never know what the market's really going to do. This space is nascent. The institutions, when they move in, they're going to move in a very meaningful way, and you're going to see significantly higher prices in a very short period of time. And if you're not on the rocket when it takes off, waiting for just a little bit more that you could have bought at, I don't want to regret anything, right? That's my deal. So that, and again, there's been other times I'm like, dang, if I'd have just been a little less greedy, or if I had just hedged a little less, things would have worked out better for me. So those are my lessons. Again, I don't know how long you've been in the market if you're watching this. Here's something else too. And just go with me here, okay? Poor mindset people will not learn from other people's lessons. They have to learn the lessons themselves, and they tend to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. People that do well, not like the high end of success, will make a mistake. They learn from that lesson themselves. People that I've seen that are the most successful learn from other people's mistakes and don't make the mistakes to begin with. So if you're new to the market, I can tell you dollar cost averaging has won almost every time for anybody I've ever talked to. There have been very few people that I've known that have picked tops and bottoms. All right. QuarterX7, they say, hey Jake, I got a request. When the time is right, can you make an in-depth video about your products you're working on for the average Joe with you and your team over there? I would love to. When we launch them, believe me, you guys will be the first to know. I will make a full-length video and all the cool stuff that we have. We have a really, really cool product coming to market in the not-too-distant future for democratization of access to a lot of the stuff that we've put together. And I think, it's going to gain a lot of traction when we do it, because it provides an end-to-end solution for a lot of the things that we do. And it makes it super easy. It's all aggregated in one view. So again, we want to democratize access to all the stuff that we do, but there are thresholds for things. As an example, the Bitcoin product that we just launched, okay? We did that with Fidelity and a company called 2Prime that have been around for a long time. They're a very successful manager in the space. Their product for Bitcoin over the past 5 years, if you put 100 Bitcoin with them in 2020, you now have 138 Bitcoin. So their gains are denominated in Bitcoin. If you wanted to look in cash, I'm sure that it's a lot more than that, right? The percentage gain is significantly more because of the appreciation with Bitcoin. They've stripped that out. You have 38% more Bitcoin. Normally, you would have to have at least $10 million to even approach them to have the conversation to allocate to their fund. We've got that down to $500,000. And I know that's not the little guy yet, right? But it's a step in the right direction. That is what we're doing. We want to democratize access to all these things for people that have, you work a W-2, you work a 9 to 5, you don't have a ton of discretionary income. You're just trying to save as much as you can and invest a little bit to get some upside and do better for yourself and your family. And there's not a whole lot of just candidly, there's not a lot of money in that. And that's why wealth managers and other people don't tend to curate products for that demographic. The other thing that I'll say about people that don't necessarily have so much money is they miser the money that they have, which I completely get. If you're in a point of scarcity and you don't have much to risk and it's all you got to risk, you're going to be a lot more demanding with that little bit that you can risk versus somebody that has a bunch of money. If you got $50 million, $100 million and you're allocating $1 million or $2 million here, call me when it makes some returns. That's what our high level clients say. They're not beating on the door, blowing up our DMs and emails. They're not pissed off all the time. They're very easy to work with. And I see it from both ends, right? Like, I've been broke. I have asked people for money at the gas station, right? Like, I did not come from money. I've been very fortunate in my life to be in the right place at the right time with the right information to be able to make good moves for me and my family. And we want to advocate for those people. So just know that, like, when you're working with people, if you come from a place of abundance and you have that mindset, you're a lot easier to work with other people, and they will afford you a lot more grace and, you know, answer your call and do all this stuff. If you beat people up and you're hounding them and you are, for lack of a better term, pain in the ass, not a whole lot of people are going to work with you or afford you opportunities. And that's a lesson I've had to learn too, right? Again, I didn't come from money, and there was a time when I lived in a point of scarcity and misered what little bit that I had. And some people didn't want to work with me because I'm hard to work with on some stuff. So it's kind of a give and take. But we do absolutely want to democratize access. We want to give the little guy opportunities. We want people to have hope for them and themselves and their families to do better and move on to a place where they're not living in that scarcity. And the way that we're doing that is, you know, creating some of these products. Hang out for another, call it 15 minutes or so. Hey, what's going on? He says, Carbon One member here. XRP Ripple Dippler. Looking sharp, legend. That is all. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. So we just came from the conference. I didn't have time to change, and I've got to go to XRP Community Night. So I figured I'd just hop on here in the attire that I normally wear out there when I'm speaking and engaging with clients. We got Caden. He says, do you think BlackRock is waiting for clarity to launch their ETF? And didn't you say we need BlackRock's ETF for there to be enough liquidity to be used properly? They don't need clarity. We already have XRP ETFs. They are waiting for the right time to drive enough demand all at one time to push it to a price where they need it to be in order to be able to de-risk the back end of the stock market. There's been two separate occasions where Larry Fink and Brad Garlinghouse have been on, I don't know if it's CNBC or Fox or CNN or which, large network they were on, but they were asked about XRP ETFs, both of them, and they said, I can't talk about that. So all that tells me is there's NDAs in place, can't talk about it, and that it will be launched at the time when it's needed, and I have full faith that will happen, and it does not require clarity for the rest of the space. We already went over this one. If I missed your super chat tonight, I apologize. Again, I normally run these down for about 2 hours, and unfortunately I've got to cut it a little short just with the travel and the other obligations that I have. So I appreciate the grace on it. If I miss your super chat, please just send that over to one of our other social media DMs, and my wife will get it to me, and I will read it out on the next live. And hopefully, we have a lot to celebrate on the next live if things play out here in the Middle East. Separate of that, I always forget to say this. If you are getting value here, please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. It does help the algorithm. It helps the channel grow. It helps more people get access to cool, educational information that, again, you might be an advocate for. And again, all the support is very much appreciated. Oh, we got Doken Raw. They say, Jake, after this, enjoy a nice dessert for you and the missus. See you on the other side of price appreciation. Peace be with you. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. My wife is a foodie, for those that don't know. And she definitely loves the dessert. Markman says, when Japan is forced to raise interest rates, how long will it take for the broader effects to unfold, unwinding the carry trade and settlement? Imminent. It won't take long at all. It will be like somebody yelling fire in a theater. Everybody will be running for the door at the same time. Everybody will be trying to de-risk from their positions, the loans that they've taken from the Bank of Japan in yen. You've already seen the Fed and Warren Buffett make huge allocations to yen because they know that's coming and they need to be a liquidity provider in that situation. So they'll basically transfer the debt. They'll lend them the yen, they'll pay off that loan, and they'll have a new loan with Uncle Warren or with the Fed. And it will be very fast that everything unfolds, in my opinion. Leader of Zen says, hey Jake, for example, let's say I have 40K XRP, we hit $100, that's worth $4 million of XRP. Being a Brown Belt Mastermind member, can I instantly onboard with DWP? Yep, good to go. That is above our threshold. We would love to work with you. And our minimum right now is 50,000 XRP or $500,000 in total portfolio value. We'll probably have some dollar threshold that we move to outside of an XRP amount in the future on the other side of price appreciation. And that'll make it real easy. So as people's XRP appreciates above a certain amount, they can absolutely onboard. Again, I would suggest you don't have to set up an LLC, be proactive, have things structured the right way, and that's going to make that process much faster and smoother versus having to go through that first versus, and then having to be on board afterward. And again, I didn't mention this, but I'll touch on it here because you brought it up. If you do have an LLC through the end of February here, we have a code, onboard 100 over there, Digital Wealth Partners, get you your onboarding fee for $100 off. So it's $900 instead of $1,000. We want, again, people to be proactive, move on over, get your account set up. We anticipate that the yield product is going to be in the not too distant future. And, then you're inside of institutional custody when price appreciation happens and you're good to go. You know that it's safe, it's insured, it's segregated, it's bankruptcy remote, you have an advisor, you can take advantage of all the products and solutions we're going to be able to bring to market when that happens. So if you want to go ahead and do that, you can go ahead, and it's $900 to onboard at Digital Wealth Partners. Go to digitalwealthpartners.net, use the contact us form, and when you pay the onboarding fee, it's just onboard 100, get you $100 off for $900 instead of $1,000. Hyper 2861 says, Jake, my man, fellow Carbon One member, do you think that price appreciation, tinfoil hat, happens before December? I've got a wedding planned. You are more than welcome to come to Miami and join us. Thank you for what you do. Awesome, dude. Maybe, I don't know when your wedding is, but we will again be in Miami for Consensus. Well, I won't even say it. I'm going to refer to Monica Long. Okay. So Monica Long at XRP Community Day, just a few days ago on Twitter, said that this year would be full-scale institutional adoption of XRP and the XRPL. For that to happen, you have to have a high-price XRP. It has to be a high, stable price. Later on in that same day, David Schwartz came out and said that the main opposition to banks and institutions holding large amounts of XRP has been volatility. They need a high, stable price for this asset for them to feel comfortable. So for her to say that's going to happen in 2026 and then for David Schwartz to follow along with that, I feel very confident that they both know that it needs to be a high, stable price in order for that to happen. And so therefore, yes, it should happen before the end of the year. So I don't know if that's December or not, but here in 2026. I'll take a couple more and then I got to wrap it up. We got Big Dog 1206. They say, hey Jake, if I transfer my XRP into an LLC in Wyoming, will that help me avoid the investment tax the communist governor in Virginia is proposing? It's an entity in Wyoming, correct? Yeah, it would absolutely help you mitigate that risk if you structured it in Wyoming versus having it there in your local jurisdiction. We already did this one. He did lots of those. Thank you, man. You didn't have to do so many super chats. We've got Mark Man. He says, when Japan is forced to raise interest rates. Oh, we already touched on this one. All right, we'll scroll up in the chat. We'll try to take 2 more here before we wrap it up tonight. And again, we'd love to see you guys out here in Denver at XRP Community Night if you can make it. We also have Ray Fuentes event tomorrow. He's putting on. We're sponsoring that. I'll be there, and then I'm speaking on Friday at ETH Denver as well. What else was I going to say? We talked about that. Talked about the LLC. We talked about the trust. Talked about the wealth management. Oh, a couple people have mentioned that they are part of the mastermind. If you want to be part of the mastermind, we have over 16,000 people there that participate in that community that have aligned interest. They want a better life for themselves and their family. They want financial education and business resources. They want access to private deals. They want access to, the community events that we put on. We'll continue to cultivate things and do things there in that community. Loyalty is a big thing for us. Those that are in now, we are going to lock it down post-price appreciation. I've been saying that for a long time. We will raise prices significantly, and it'll be invite only to get in that community. So if you think price appreciation seems pretty close and you haven't joined the community yet, but you have been meaning to, all you got to do is go over there to beyondbroke.com, use the code BEYONDBROKE, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, get you the first month for $2 there in the community. It's month to month, no contract. You can leave at any time, but for 16,000 people to remain in the community consistently, hopefully that tells you something about the value that's provided there. And we will wrap it up with Lou. They say, banking history never transacted 100 billion to a trillion one time. They do it with multiple transactions. So why would XRP go to 1K per XRP, circulating supply available at about 5 billion XRP? So they haven't because they can't. This is the answer. If they could move things for cheaper and move it faster and at scale with large value payments like that, they would love to do that because that's a faster, cheaper way to be able to execute and get access to liquidity without multiple transactions. So batch payments on the XRPL goes live. I don't think it's got all the votes yet. That'll be the next one that likely gets pushed through on the XRPL. You had an escrow, token escrow, which allows for tokenized real world assets or issued assets on the XRPL to be escrowed here just recently. And then permission DEX, the big deal. That was the last piece really for institutional adoption of the mainnet, and that's now live. So I'd expect that now that everything's available and they can operate in a zero knowledge proof with credentials and digital identity, and they've got custody figured out. And I'll end on this. In 2023, when I went to Swell, I was in Dubai. It was the first Swell that I attended. The mantra that they had there during that year was custody and digital identity. They said that those are the bedrock, the crux, the underlying infrastructure that was required to be in place before banks and institutions would even look at, leveraging this technology. Those things have been solved over the past 2 years. They are in place. They are ready to go on the XRPL. And with Ripple at the forefront of that, with their banking license and all the other acquisitions that they made last year, they're in a position to force people's hands. The other banks and institutions are going to have to move, otherwise they're going to take so much market share that they're going to drive them out of business. So they're also going to have to leverage this technology. And that just continues to add value to the network, the token, and all the things that we want to happen. And again, to your point, they would be able to transact much larger amounts of value in a single payment versus multiple transactions. So hopefully you guys got value from this. Again, appreciate you taking an hour out of your evening to come hang out with me. We did them a little earlier this week because of the travel here in ETH Denver. For those that listen back to this later, again, please like, subscribe, share with somebody you know. It does help the channel and the algorithm. One more time on the codes here for those that may have missed them. So if you need the LLC, all you got to do is go to digitalfamilyoffice.io, use the code 50OFF, 50OFFDAGLLC. That's 50OFFDAGLLC, all capitalized. Get you everything end to end for a holding company in Wyoming to manage your digital assets. We can do the trust. There's some add-on stuff there. The code for that, if you want the discount, is Webinar Trust to get you $200 off the revocable trust and the assignment. If you want to work with Digital Wealth Partners, so you already have your LLC for the next 12 days here, actually that's 10 days here, You will be able to get in over there for $900 if you use the code ONBOARD100. So you need the LLC. You can use that code. Be good to go. You get access to institutional custody for your digital assets, insurance advisory, all the fun stuff that we have there, and products for accredited investors at this time. And then last but not least, if you want to join the mastermind, we would love to have you. And again, we're shutting it down on the other side of a $10 XRP, which might be imminent here with the things happening in the Middle East. So if you want your seat at the table, all you got to do is go to beyondbroke.com and use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, get you the first month for $2. And that's a wrap. I hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday, a wonderful week, maybe some fun stuff happening over the next few days. We'll be in the mastermind on Saturday for the town hall to run it down with all the other stuff that we have going on. I share a lot more there than I do here publicly. And with that, again, like I said, wish you a wonderful evening, a wonderful week, and we'll see you on the next one. Appreciate you, TikTok. Y'all have a good night.